Morning again, Steve.
Hi, Rich.
It's been a while.
It's been a long while, yes.
First up, what sort of shape are you in for this weekend? What's the team news?
Well, we've only got really one major concern from last week is the captain who limped off. He's got a foot injury. We'll see how he is in the next. We've still got 48 hours or so. We'll see how he is, but everybody else is okay.
And in terms of the Longstaff brothers, are they back in contention for a start?
Yeah. Well, Matty's now completed an under-23 game, so he's played a game and a half. He's trained all week again. So thankfully, touch wood, he looks as if he's over his injury. And Sean has recovered from a horrible bout of tonsillitis, so he's okay as well. So they've both come into the equation.
What sort of difference do they make to the dynamic of your midfield?
Well, they had a remarkable impact, both of them, in their own sort of way. I don't think any of us will forget young Matty's debut and what he did then. And the one thing that they do is they bring an energy and a legwork to the team. And of course, they've both got they're very, very decent passers of the ball too. So, you know, there's many times where I played the two of them together. So, in one way or another, though, they've had a few problems, especially young Matty with the contract situation and the injury, unfortunately, has hampered him for a long while. So we hope he can stay fit because they've both got something to offer.
And I suppose you need that strength and the versatility they give you when you come up against an Everton side who are flying at the moment.
Yeah, and the one area where they've improved dramatically is the midfield area. The three players they've brought in have hit the ground running. They've given them an extra dimension, certainly. And yeah, I mean, look, they've had a wonderful start. They've invested well. They've got a top-class manager. So we know that we're in for a very, very difficult game. And but I'm really, really pleased that there's somebody else different at the top of the league. How refreshing is that? Wonderful. So, and as I said, I'm a big, huge admirer of Ancelotti and what he's done and achieved. It'll be a tough, tough game for us, that's for sure.
And a final one from me. I just wonder what you make of James Rodriguez, because he left Real Madrid under a bit of a cloud with people writing him off, and yet it's like he's always played in the Premier League since the start of this season.
Well, he burst onto the scene a few years ago in the World Cup. Didn't he get the Player of the World Cup? He looks a very, very good player. That's what I'm saying. The boy Alan and Decore and him certainly have given Everton what looks like a new dimension. That with the addition of the manager, then, you know, and they've invested very, very well over the last few years. But certainly he is a top player. So we'll have to be at our best to make sure that we keep him quiet if we can.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Vicky Sparks.
Hiya, Steve.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Let's go again. Vicky Sparks.
Steve, obviously you changed the formation up against Wolves last time out. Is that something that you would consider utilising again going forward? Just another option, I guess.
I think it's important that you have the ability to change. How many times do you see a team change? And I thought for last week in particular, I'll make no excuse for it, that we had to be better defensively. We've been, in my opinion, too open. We were having too many shots on our goal and too many chances were created against us. So, you know, we had to do something about that to give ourselves a chance. So, thankfully, even with the problems that we had, especially in midfield areas, that we did that particularly well. Now, the key to is getting the balance right of still maintaining that you're a threat the other way. But at least last week, we were more like us in terms of how we defended and how we did our job defensively, because, as I said, we'd conceded far too many goals, and I'll make no excuse that we had to address that first before we do anything else.
And obviously a few players playing in unfamiliar positions. How important is it to have players that are not only versatile but are ready and willing to say, yep, I'll play? I mean, they always tell us they'll play anywhere, but they actually will.
Yeah, we knew Jacob could play there and played there very well, because that's what he did successfully for Sheffield Wednesday last year and managed to score, I think, 4 goals in his last 5 games for them. So we knew that was not okay. And of course, we're asking Ryan and Miggy in particular now, because of the problems we had in midfield, to play maybe in an unfamiliar one. To be fair to Miggy, he's played there a fair few times for us. So, look, we asked them to do a job, and they did it. And as I said, defensively last week, we were far, far better, and that's what we have to be. We have to be difficult to play against and difficult to beat, and cause a threat the other way.
Just on the team news, Isaac Hayden, is he then looking all right as well now?
Yeah, he's fine. He's looks as if he's recovered. He's trained all week. I didn't think I could gamble with him last week. And as we've seen in the Premier League, soft tissue injuries and injuries in general are a problem. I think we've had a senior report this week that 42% in terms of injuries in the first 6 games, especially with soft tissue injuries, is a big stat. So we couldn't risk him either. But we're not alone in it. There's other teams too, which is finding it a struggle with it.
And just finally, from me, having touched on Everton earlier, another player obviously that's really stood out this season, Dominic CalvertLewin.
Yeah, and what a great story that is, isn't it, in itself? He's worked extremely hard. He's arguably the best header of the ball in the Premier League, certainly forward-wise. You don't see it very often these days, but he certainly is terrific. And I'm delighted for him, for his attitude and the way he works and the way he is. We'll have to be at our best tomorrow to make sure that we defend well against him. But he's one of the reasons, along with our midfield three in particular, one of the reasons why they've been successful is obviously the form of him and the goal he scored.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Going to go to Alistair at BBC Sport.
Morning, Steve. How are you?
Alistair, I'm fine, thank you.
I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions. Obviously, there's been a fair bit going off the field this week. So Mike Ashley's statement about pay-per-view being not acceptable at its current rate, £15, I think it is, although it sounds like there's only another week of that maybe to come. And also the fans, the season ticket holders, getting a refund now. I just wondered, I know you haven't got fans in the stadium now, but how important you thought that was just to sort of help with the fans in.
Yeah, well, I believe that it's been going on a while, and to get it sorted out, obviously everybody's delighted. It's been a tough time for everybody concerned. So I'm glad that's sorted. As for the pay-per-view, I think I agree with them. I think £15 is far too much when people pay their subscriptions to the Sky and BT and whatever it is. Then I think £15 for a game is too much. So I'm all for it, but I'm also all for that. If we're not careful, we're going to oversaturate it too. And we're seeing every game, 8 and 10 games a weekend, and for me, it's not the spectacle. Certainly, I mean, look, we're all delighted that we're playing some sort of football, but it's not the spectacle of what we'll all witness, whether you're in the stadium or watching it on TV. It's not the same, is it? So, but in this particularly difficult time, I'm all agreeing that a £5 is enough. So I'm all for it.
Actually, yeah, just on that spectacle as well, you probably saw this week that in Germany, they're actually going backwards now. They're sort of deciding that maybe fans can't be allowed in Germany now. So are you sort of fearful that it's going to be a while till we get fans back in now?
We're all fearful of it because certainly, as I've said from the offset, when we first went back to playing, to get the season finished and what it is and what we're having to face, it's, for me, not the spectacle. If we ever need supporters, then we only have to watch the games to see how valuable they are, because we're all watching them thinking, well, yeah, it's okay, but it's not the same spectacle. And we all need supporters back in the ground. So when will that be? I can't understand. I really can't understand where we could go to the cinema tonight if we wanted, or we can go and sit in a bus next to people, where we can't go to a stadium and have it reduced and it open outside. It really baffles me. But then again, I'm no scientist, and probably I'm being a bit selfish in the respect that we want supporters back in as quickly as we possibly can.
And just last one from me, mention of it, obviously Everton's flying start to the season. They came a bit unstuck last weekend against Southampton. Did you learn anything from watching that game in the way that Southampton went about their business?
Yeah, they were very good, Southampton, weren't they? They were very, very good. And that's the Premier League. That's how it's the most difficult league in the world. Everton flying high and Southampton were excellent on the day, who've got good players, very, very good players. So I'm delighted that there's a different name at the top end of the Premier League for Everton in particular, and the manager, Ancelotti, and what they've invested over the last few years. Then they deserve to be where they are. So you always do, and I learn every week that the Premier League is every team you play against, and where it's different to Germany and Spain and France, right the way throughout the Premier League, the strength and depth of it is quite remarkable, where, that's the beauty of it, that people can get turned over, and Everton did last week.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks.
Thank you, Alistair. Mark Tulip.
Steve, morning.
Morning, Mark.
I remember when Leicester sort of broke up the Big Six a few years ago. Do you think with this strange season without fans, this might be where the likes of Everton really make a serious push for top four?
Well, at the time it was all fantastic. It was great news for Leicester, wasn't it? But time will only tell. They've invested heavily in the last few years. They've got a top-class manager who's used to winning. And certainly the 3 signings in the summer, their midfield players, has given them a different dimension. That in the form of the centre forward, then they're pretty formidable. So, hey, whether they can last the pace, we'll have to wait and see. But it's quite refreshing that there's another name at the top of the leaderboard, even though we're only 6 games in.
You mentioned Carlo Ancelotti. You did get a 3-0 win against him once when he was Chelsea boss, I believe. But you won't be surprised at what he's done at Everton.
Well, I think if you look what he's done, not just as a player, where he was a top class player, and the way he manages and the success he's had, I'm a huge admirer. He's got a quiet calmness about him, which just shows you there's always different ways to manage. And then the break, I read his book, which is a good read as well. So I'm a huge admirer of him. When people are successful the way he has, and the way they keep driving themselves forward, then I know how difficult a job it is to be at the top like he's been and manage the clubs he's been. You have to say well done to him, and congratulations. He's a top-class manager.
Steve, finally from me, do you think one of the key points from your point of view this season will be that sort of defensive tightness that you showed against Wolves, but possibly not against Manchester United, and then balancing that with the need, perhaps when you can, to be that little bit more adventurous?
Correct. I think that's what we have to try and achieve. And in my opinion, we've been too easy to play against, and we hadn't done enough defensively. And we can't keep conceding the goals that we're conceding. So we had to show that resilience again, which we proved last week against Wolves, to give ourselves a chance. We ain't going to score 2 and 3 goals every week. We'd love to, don't get me wrong. We'd love to be the entertainers again, but it's just not possible. So we have to get that balance right of, yes, being difficult to beat, difficult to play against, and give not much away, and be more of a threat the other way. And that's what we've got to try and achieve if we can.
Thanks, Steve. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, broadcasters. Written guys, if you want to use the raise hand function now, we'll be with you in just a second.